Eden's Fun Crochet. I'm Eden, and this is the channel where we talk about everything crochet and craft related, but mostly crochet. I'm really excited for the topic that we'll be talking about today. I feel like it is both over talked about and under talked about in the crochet and knit community. So before we get started, I want to talk a little bit, have a little disclaimer. So everything that I will be talking about today is from personal experience and what I have found online, but mostly what works for me. And so anything that I say that's like, well, this doesn't really work, and this isn't really, this is talked a lot about, but I don't feel like it's really true. It's for me personally, my personal experience, not it's not backed up. I have read some things by doctors that kind of back up what I say, but it's not strictly what you have been told is wrong. It's just based off of my personal experience. I went to a doctor several years ago, back in 2018, for wrist pain, and they're just like, oh, it's just carpal tunnel. Drink tonic water and don't use your wrist. So I will be talking about three main things: why it happens, how to avoid wrist pain, and what to do when you get pain in your wrist. So for the first topic, why it happens. So for me specifically, I get a lot of pain right here, under my thumb when I crochet, in my wrist, under my thumb when I crochet for long periods of time. It starts to build up right here under my wrist. The reason why this happens is because of the repetitive motion of crocheting. So, or knitting, I guess. I don't knit that much, so I don't know what the motion is, or where you'd get the pain, but that's where I get my pain, and why it happens is because of the repetitive motion. A lot of the symptoms that come with quote-unquote crochet wrist is in line with carpal tunnel. But research shows that people who get carpal tunnel from crocheting, who get carpal tunnel surgery, once they start crocheting again, the symptoms come back and the surgery doesn't actually do what it was supposed to, because it's not actually carpal tunnel. It just has carpal tunnel symptoms because carpal tunnel is usually in the wrist and usually hurts and gives you shooting pain. And I'm not saying you can't get carpal tunnel from crocheting. You totally can, because it's basically just a nerve issue in your wrist. But the reason why it hurts when you're doing the repetitive motion is because you're wearing down your joints. You are getting joint damage, which is different than carpal tunnel. So what happens is it's loosening your muscles when you crochet, because you're basically stretching. You're stretching over and over and over again. Of wrist pain is hardly ever just wrist pain. Usually you're getting wrist pain because of your arm or shoulder or back. And one of the biggest reasons why this person specifically was getting a lot of people coming in for wrist pain was because they sit like this a lot. And then it's not necessarily their wrist that's the problem, but their posture. So that goes straight into our next segment: how to avoid wrist pain. So some of the things that are really good for avoiding wrist pain is change, right? Because it's the repetitive movement that is causing the pain. So how you deal with repetitive movement is by not doing the repetitive movement for very long, right? When you're crocheting, we want to change a few things. We want to change your posture pretty frequently. We want to change the way you're holding a hook, or the way that your wrist is moving, and then also what you're doing. As far as posture goes, I like to sit in three main positions. When I crochet, one of the things that I do is I kind of lounge on a couch. Is one of the ways. I try not to sit like this. I do it, but I try really hard to avoid it. And then it also causes a lot of back pain. And not one of my favorite things. I hate having back pain, so I try not to sit like this. I'll lounge, so kind of in a laying sit position when I crochet. The second position is just sitting straight up and crocheting that way. And then the third position is standing while crocheting. I would just stand and crochet, and that helps my back not hurt a lot. But what I like to do is sit in these positions for 20 minutes at a time, no longer than an hour. You do not want to be in one position for more than an hour. I found that 20 minutes is probably a good pace. If you're already starting to feel the pain, then you'll want to do even less than 20 minutes. Another thing that we want to change is the way you are crocheting. So there's two main types of ways to hold your crochet hook. There's the knife way, which is the way I hold it. I crochet like this. And then other people hold it like this. If you crochet with your dominant hand, then holding it like a pencil is probably not that hard. And I know several people on YouTube who crochet with both the pencil position and knife position, and they switch back and forth because it's different repetitive motions. It's similar but different enough, and you're putting pressure on different parts of your hand that it does help to switch between the two positions. I also do like a third position where I kind of hold like upside down knife, where I like hold it like this because I am actually left-handed, but I crochet with my right hand, and so that is like holding it in pencil position is like so weird for my brain. I'll still do it, but I can't do it for more than a couple of minutes at a time. And if I start to feel the pain coming on, then I will do it for a little bit and then switch, and I'll just be switching a lot when I start to feel the pain in my wrist. Another thing is what you are crocheting. I like to use a wide variety of crochet hooks for different projects. I use smaller hooks for smaller yarn, bigger hook for bigger yarn, and things like that, right? Some people tend to stick to one size hook for all their projects. Like if they do amigurumi, they're usually like they find a hook and a yarn that works for them, and that's what they use for everything. I'm not that way. I have a variety of hooks and I use all of them. If I start to feel pain because I'm doing a bunch of scrunchies, then okay, time to be done with scrunchies, move on to something that uses a different size hook. And that usually helps switching between projects. I tend to have a lot of projects going on at once, so it is not hard for me to switch between projects. If you're a monogamous crocheter or knitter, then maybe you can get like two projects and purposely have them have different size hooks or needles so that the way that you are holding your hook, like the tension that you have, is different for how big the hook size that you have is, right? Because I hold a really small hook differently than I hold a big hook because my hand just rests on it differently, and the amount of pressure I need to pull it through the stitches is also different. If you use the hooks with the handles, it is easier on your wrist than hooks without handles. I talked about these hooks in my last video that I get at Walmart that have just a bigger handle and are squishier than like the other kinds of hooks that I have like these from other brands. I like the Walmart ones the best. I have not tried the Clover Moore hooks because they're a little out of my price range. These are ones that I feel like are affordable and good to use, are the ones from Walmart, the Boy brand, or Boye. I'm not exactly sure. It's Boye. Another thing is taking small breaks. These breaks do not have to be very long at all. It can be put your crochet down for a second, pick up a snack, eat the snack, and get back to crocheting. Or it can be like going to the bathroom, going to get a drink of water. But like changing your posture, stopping your hands moving for a little bit can help get rid of that repetitive motion, right? The pain is caused by repetitive motion. So what we're trying to do here is get rid of that repetitive motion and try and make it as least repetitive as possible. So taking small breaks, and the more pain, like if you're doing the same project for a long time, the more pain that you get, the bigger the breaks you need to have. On days that I'm trying to get something done and I'm not really paying attention to the way I'm sitting, or I'm just sitting and crocheting during a movie, for example, and I'm sitting there for like an hour and a half crocheting the same project with the same hook, and I'm not paying attention to the way I'm crocheting, it can cause some pretty severe pain in my wrist, and I have to take a break for sometimes even a whole day. But the more that I do these things, the more I don't have to take breaks as often, and it's actually really helpful. I've been crocheting for years, I've been dealing with wrist pain for years, and I have never found something as useful as these things. The next thing that I want to talk about is still under avoid wrist pain, which I feel like is very important and most people don't do. I hear a lot on crochet YouTube channels and other things where people say, oh, do these stretches to help with wrist pain. No, don't do that. especially if you've been crocheting for a long time, you do not want to stretch your wrists because you have already been stretching them. That's the problem. So what you want to do, not when your wrists are hurting, don't do it when your wrists hurt, but on a day-to-day basis, what you want to do is exercise your wrists. There are a few ways you can do this. Weight lifts is probably the best option to strengthen your wrists because what you're doing is you're strengthening the muscles, which makes it easier for them to not hurt when you're using them over and over and over again. And if you don't have any weights, you can use things around the house, like a jug of milk. I found it works really well. Like if I have wrist pain, I can't lift a jug of milk. And so like a gallon of milk, I feel like is really good. So you could just sit there and use that as your weight. You can use other things around the house. If you don't want to do any weight lifts, you can use the weight of your own body. So like push-ups or high plank, anything that puts pressure on your wrist is good for exercises. And you want to do these exercises every day, or at least consistently enough. So let's say you don't crochet every day, that's fine. You don't have to do exercises every day, but the more you do exercises will help your wrist be stronger and therefore give you less pain. I do like 5 curls and like 3 push-ups every day, and that seems to be enough. Like I do it first thing in the morning because I like to crochet first thing in the morning. And so I'll get up, I'll do my exercises, which takes like 1-2 minutes maybe because I don't do very much. And then I crochet for a few hours and it seems to help a ton with my pain. So that's how to avoid wrist pain. Now, what do you do when you get pain? So I've already kind of talked about this already in the how to avoid wrist pain, is stop crocheting, take a break, do small exercises, but don't hurt it more. If you are doing something that makes it hurt, like lifting a weight, if that hurts, don't do it. If you're like lifting a jug of milk, don't do it if it hurts. If crocheting hurts, stop. If crocheting with like with a large hook hurts, but not a small hook, then don't use a large hook and use a small hook. Like don't hurt your wrist. If it's starting to hurt, then that means that the damage is already being done, and if you hurt it more, then it's going to hurt more, and then you'll need to take a longer break. If you do have to crochet through the pain, right, then do the things I talked about where you're changing positions a lot, you're changing the way that you're sitting, you're changing the way you're using the hook, and that will help prevent it from getting worse even if it already hurts. Again, remember, I'm not a doctor, this is just from personal experience, but I've been crocheting for almost 15 years, and I've had wrist pain for almost 7 years, basically the time that I've been doing this all the time. Like as soon as it became my identity, I started having issues with my wrist. And I've been to doctors and they give me the same, oh, just stop using your wrist. That's not helpful. So I found that these things are the most helpful. Again, exercising, not stretching, posture, try not to be repetitive, changing up what you're doing, taking small breaks, and using hooks that don't hurt your hands. And I will see you next time on this channel, hopefully.